I mean, I've walked into what I thought was a vacant unit before, and there were three guys standing there grilling inside. And
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the Cash Flow Digest. My name is Matt Faircloth, and I'm super excited to be here with you guys. Not just excited because I've had lots of coffee today, which I have. My wife got me an espresso, but also excited to be here with you guys. Today is the Cash Flow Digest conversation. It's going to be really neat stuff. I've got a phenomenal guest. I look up to this person he's really been able to create some interesting stuff in real estate, has a former career in financial planning and stocks and that kind of stuff, still plays in that arena, and now does some really neat stuff with regards to multifamily. And he's going to teach us how he's able to buy properties from banks, deals from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac out of receivership. He's going to teach us about buying multifamily foreclosures. Interesting. I just put out here. You guys can watch the show now on Spotify with the video included and everything. If you're watching the show on YouTube, grateful for you guys there. And if you're watching this show live, I'm super grateful for you guys here on our Facebook feed, which is on the DeRosa Insiders. Jump over to Facebook and join the DeRosa Insiders community, where you guys can watch live, can comment live, just like my friend Chad just did. And the many people watching right now are able to watch us live. So however you're watching, I'm grateful for you guys and grateful for the show as it means to get out the word about real estate investing to the world. Lucky enough to call a friend. He is Bruce Fraser, no relation to the captain of our ship, the asset manager and operations manager, Justin Fraser. Those two have met, but they are not related. He's taught me a lot about rates, the stuff we've talked about today. Bruce is one of the few people that's been able to do what a lot of us want to do, which is to buy distress. A lot of you guys that, like me, have come out of the smaller multifamily, buying duplexes, triplexes, whatever, going to foreclosure.com, going to a lot of the smaller real estate auction sites, or buying a distressed piece of real estate, dilapidated, adding value, and then the property being worth a good bit more, a la the BRRRR strategy. But everybody's like, well, how do I do that in bigger multifamily? Our guest has been able to pull it off. Without further ado, guys, Bruce Fraser. What's up, man? How are you today?
hey, Matt, great to see you. How are you doing?
Good to see you too, brother. Can you give us real quick your backstory? Then a lot of the folks in our circles like to buy these
pretty stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they like to buy the pretty stuff that they can put on their Facebook page. You and I are the few in our mastermind groups that are kind of the scrappos buying the Class C stuff.
Yeah, I'll just put the numbers on my Facebook page, right? Not the picture of the property that drove it.
Yeah, right. Real quick, give you a little bit of your backstory to our audience here.
I think I came out wired as a finance guy. I love numbers, the way to structure thought. But for years, I actually ran a hedge fund. My background to get to real estate is a little bit different than a lot of people. A lot of people, like you were mentioning earlier, you did a house or two or some duplexes and kind of built their way into it. Mine is really more of a strategic investment decision. And so I ran the fund for a decade. It was actually an options fund, and it was managed to make a steady return no matter what. And we actually did that, including during the financial crisis. We were actually at our all-time highs. And it wasn't because we bet on the collapse. We just didn't get hit. And so I had been an active real estate investor with one partner prior to that, and we literally sold all of our real estate in 07 and peeled the last one off in late 07. That one was a little bit too close to for comfort, but so avoided the mess of 08 and 09 and started Elkhorn Capital Partners in 2010. And in 2010, the banking system was a lot worse than it is now even, and banks were just simply not lending. They didn't have the capacity to. They were in trouble with all their loans. So the first couple of years, the deals that we did were just cash deals. They were, we were doing hard money lending. We were doing smaller single family rentals, duplexes, bought some assets from banks directly. Things went well. And a couple years later, banks were lending again. And we really didn't like having to be so transactional. We wanted to just own some assets because of my inflation view. We knew the Fed would start printing money at some point. And so got into multifamily. And that's, we're singularly focused now on multifamily. We target 100 to 300 unit deals. We don't want to target bigger deals than that because then we're competing against big institutional players. And their return requirements aren't as fun as we would like to make. And so they'll pay too much and we can't win those deals. So we kind of have a niche, and it's what we do. A couple years into it, as you mentioned, we got into distress situation deals. Not really sure why we started doing that. I just like to fix things, I guess. And lenders like working with us on them because they see our track record. I don't want to brag myself too much, but it's a good track record. They believe that we can do it, and they've seen us do it, and they know that we do what we say we're going to do. And so if we go to Freddie Mac and say we can get this off your balance sheet in 30 days, they know that we mean it. And it is a ton of work. It sounds sexy when you look at the numbers and everything else, but it is a ton of work. That first year or two is they call it heavy lift for a reason. It's a lot of stress and a lot of work and surprises, rarely positive surprises. But the fun part is you have an absolute certain path to creating value for the property. And
Mhm.
if you have a 75% vacant property, if you can fill up those units, it's going to be worth more. And so
Sure.
it's bringing those units back online. We did a Freddie Mac foreclosure, bought it from them December of 21. A couple months when we took over, it was making about 45K in revenue a month. And this month, I think it's going to do 160K in revenue.
Proof's in the
So
pudding, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We've bought some from regional banks as well, oversee an asset for a bank that they knew they were going to foreclose it. It was just a mess. And we didn't want to buy it at that point in time. With the city was involved in the deal. The quick short story on it is single family home builder had bought it, ripped a ton of the units out. They were going to do a ton of rehab and didn't permit any of it. And so the
Mm.
city got involved. It got really contentious, and we just didn't know whether the city was going to play fair with us or not. And so we went in and helped. They paid us to oversee it for them for a period of time, but we had an option to buy it. And once we did, we've improved the results dramatically. Brought most of the units back online, and now the present son actually lives on the property. If that, I mean, so they've loaned to us on another asset as well. They're big fans. They've seen firsthand what we can do. So it's a
Wow.
lot of work, though. I mean, I wouldn't encourage everybody to go do it. It's lots of days it's not fun.
You got to really have like a strong team that's able to literally strap up and deal with a lot of the issues that happen at properties occupied at 25, 30, 40%. I've been there, and these are not properties that any owner would be proud of to drive around. Crime element tends to find properties like that. You tend to have vandalism. Which string do I pull first? What do I deal with first at a property like this?
If it's a 25% occupied property, those are people that don't have other options of places to live, and so they're there for a reason. It's
Mhm.
not being managed well. I doubt work orders are being done. So
Yeah.
yeah, you are really taking. It's a battle to take control of a property like that, not
Yeah.
like the homeless people or the drug dealers or whatever.
We've had homeless people living in units. We had a maintenance tech. I mean, he was corrupt. He was leasing out vacant units to homeless people.
It's
Yes,
crazy
you've
stuff.
seen it.
No, we should write a book someday about all the stories we have. I mean, I've walked into what I thought was a vacant unit before, and there were three guys standing there grilling inside. And
You've got to have some red flags, a third rail you won't touch or whatever. Let's assume that a deal shows up that's in the geographic buy box that you have. It's in the size buy box that you have. Do you have anything that's just I'm not going to touch it because of this?
there's a whole list of things that we will do that a lot of people wouldn't. We're not going to deal with problems if it's priced as a stabilized deal that doesn't have those problems. We don't buy chiller properties. They tend to trade more cheaply, but not cheaply enough. I don't like the risk profile for the property because it could be a $5 part that takes that chiller down and your entire property's hot.
Oh
And
yeah,
in
a
the South
boiler
and
killer,
Midwest,
guys.
that is not a good thing. I mean, for occupancy, especially if the part with supply chain the way it is takes a few weeks to get. So
When you
we
convert out
have.
of it, we bought a boiler chiller deal in
Yep.
Kentucky where it was a 220 unit property and 90 of them were on boiler chiller. Tried to run a boiler chiller for a little bit. I started to see problems, and before you know
Yeah.
it, it's like, oh man, the boiler's down, and I'm like, okay, now that means 90 people don't have heat.
We would
Yeah,
buy one if we're planning to convert it. So I should
yeah,
footnote that, and we have done that. We actually had a property that had a chiller on it, and the chiller wasn't actually the issue. It was in pretty good condition. It was the pipes that run through all the units, so you couldn't even repair them easily. We could spend 400,000 or 500,000 and impact all the units, go through them, tear out the walls, and change the pipes, or we could have spent another 100 or two and
yeah.
put in all new individual ACs. And so that's what we did.
And then
Mhm.
they can heat and cool whenever they
And
want. Yeah,
you can get a better graded tenant typically because they have their own thermostat and all of that. So
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of positives to doing it, but that's not a cheap changeover.
We had
Costs
one.
probably at least 6 grand a unit.
You don't have to deal as much with heat as we do because you're down in the Texas, Oklahoma. We were doing a deal up in Kentucky, and we had a boiler. It was in the winter, so the boiler's running, and the pipes ran underground. The boiler was in one building, and it hit that boiler serviced a few buildings in a row. I went out there in the dead of winter, and you could see steam coming up from the parking lot. In layman's terms, the pipes are leaking underground. Okay, we have to take this out because this is going to be whack-a-mole. People watching here, again, they're used to, like I said, duplexes, triplexes, maybe even a little bit bigger, a commercial property, going to just foreclosure.com, seeing stuff coming off of the bank rolls, or even calling a local bank, talking to the loss and mitigation department and finding something that's in foreclosure that they can pick up. Whole different conversation, 3-digit unit multifamily, right? How does one negotiate these kinds of things to the point where the bank takes you seriously, to the point where you're able to get it yourself in the door on larger multifamily, which is something not many folks have been able to do. So how does one expand into it?
One is thinking like the bank. You're there to
Mm,
solve their problem,
yeah.
and their problem is they don't want to have special vehicles that own these non-performing assets, and they don't want to be landlords. And
Yeah.
so to be able to solve that problem for them is extremely helpful. The deal I mentioned a minute ago where the home builder had torn out so much of it, the bank had it in their non-performing special asset vehicle. And they said, can you get this closed this quarter? And we were not even a whole month left. And it was maybe 3 weeks. And I said, yeah, absolutely. If you're the lender, absolutely. So we got it done in about 3 weeks, and we frankly just told them the terms that we were going to need on the loan. Like, this is what we need the loan to look like, and we'll do it. And they did it because they did not want to be a landlord. That's not the business they're in. And so they were thrilled to get it off their balance sheet quickly. Ways that you can make yourself attractive to a bank is not to play games. Recognize what the issue is for them, and they don't want the asset. And so don't try to just be a low ball or something like that. Offer them a fair price, giving them confidence that you can execute. So offer them the fair price for it, and fair can be discounted for sure, but don't try to play games with them and steal it or something like that.
Like, once you agree on a number, don't go out there and say, well, these roofs are nearing the end of their useful life, so I want a credit for the roof. No. You just get it done, close it.
Yeah, they want to be confident that you are going to close. They don't want to go down the path for a month or two with one party and then end up having to go down the path again with another party, because what does that make them? That makes them a landlord. They want to get it off as quickly
as you said before, right? I used to be in corporate. I worked for a Fortune 500 company. Quarterly and annual performance became the gospel. That company I was with had to report to Wall Street. When a bank tells you they want it off the books that quarter,
we don't want to show it on our books.
Yeah, I want this off our books by the end of the quarter so I can show the street that I got better. My books are that much better. Look how much distressed assets we got off.
I'll take it a step further. It doesn't have to be a foreclosed deal. I mean, one way that you can help a bank is say, hey, we're experienced, we're adults at the table here, and we have the capital. Is there something that is not performing that you don't want to foreclose? Yeah. And we have had multiple bridge lenders that we've actually used, and they've seen our results on what we do, introduce us in the last month or two to borrowers of loans that are non-performing. They'll say, borrower A, meet Elkhorn Capital Partners. You guys go work out something because we're not going to extend your loan. And some of those owners will be serious enough to understand why that introduction was made, and some are still trying to pretend that they can get the full market value. I had one of these introductions made to me, and I said, honestly, it's a terrible asset. We hate the asset. And it was a little bit too small for us. It's about a 60, 70 unit deal, and our head of asset management would probably kill me if we actually did buy it, because she hates the asset too. But it is a deal we would do at the right price. If we were to do a deal like that, it has to make sense. And so that person has to get serious. And I laid it all out in an email to him and said, hey, this is what I see and what I think. I figured it was just going to be, he would be mad and just delete the email. You know what? He ended up calling me a couple times because he knew we understood the situation and we could do it if we came to terms.
How likely is the bank willing to recast the loan? That's bank terms, meaning like to loan you the money for a property that's either owned or distressed by them. How likely is the bank willing to stay in these situations?
Yeah, I've seen both ways. I've seen the example that I gave where I just said, hey, this is the structure we would need to get it done. They can be motivated enough to give you a new loan. It'll be at the current terms, things like that, not probably the prior. But there was a situation, which probably the worst property we ever bought. I couldn't even say it was a C. I mean, it was a D asset. It was one of these 25% occupied, homeless people living in it. It was rough, but it was the armpit of the neighborhood. I knew that if we went in there and fixed it and made it performing again, that we could get out with a nice profit, and frankly, would do the city a favor. And it's not an asset we want to own long term, but it is one that we've largely turned around now. But that one, the bank that was involved said, we will not do a new loan on it. They just wanted away from the asset. So I've seen both sides of it. You just have to feel them out.
I've seen that too, where it's like, it's like there's just bad juju on it. It's been tainted. Executives making the decision just wants to pull the plug and just get out. Good luck. But as Bruce had said, you guys, if you present it to the bank, this is how this works. Especially like you want to close in 3 weeks. I don't have time to go get it reappraised and recast new debt on it or whatever. You guys are going to have to help me figure that out. You've seen financial markets grow and shift or whatever. Where do you think multifamily is going in the next, say 1 to 2 years? And for those listening here that want to continue to stay relevant, want to grow and expand, or even get started in multifamily, what is the angle of attack that folks watching should have?
I think that if you can make it underwrite and cash flow now with these rates, obviously, I think that rates are going to come down in the future because the Fed can't afford to keep them up here. And so it's not that I think they're going to kill inflation, but I think they're still going to lower rates. The Fed has a bad hand. I mean, there are no good choices. They only have bad choices. And their hand will be forced. They'll ultimately have to decide between either sustained inflation or some kind of system-threatening financial crisis. So historically, if you look at what's happened with other governments and other countries, they will choose to maintain the system at the expense of the currency. Leaders always do, because continue to do debt and things like that keeps them in power, keeps them having influence, and they will always pick to destroy the currency over losing their power and their way of life. That's our bet. We believe in math, and the math says that that's how it's going to go. I think the current environment it's going to be a vetting for sure. I mean, we're seeing a lot of new players that had come in that weren't ready for this, and they were on floating, or they just they weren't ready for the increased expenses. They underwrite it too tightly. They paid too much, and those people are going to go away and lick their wounds, I think. And I think in the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to have a lot of opportunity with our focus, because there is a lot of distress. And it's not just the ugly distressed properties right now. We're seeing distress in pretty stuff. Some of those $100 million assets, people may have overpaid, but they did it, and they did floating rate. We've seen deals where the escrows were $8,000 a month. Now they're $500,000 a month. I mean, you just can't feed that very long. And so there are going to be a lot of things that trade. There's going to be a lot of equity that's lost, but that creates opportunities for those that are not having to deal with it. And so we're geared up, and we're ready to take advantage of some of that. And some of it will just be, hey, this is too hard. This isn't nearly as much fun as it used to be.
No.
And so there'll be some owners that just, they'll sell for that reason.
Screw this. Yeah, this used to be a part. We actually, by the way, just saw our first real estate deal that I've seen in a long time, where the seller is trying to sell it for less than what he paid for it 2 years ago, which means they are underwater. They're in distress. They're like, that's it. Get me out. And I think it'll be a lot more of that.
I think there's going to be a lot of that. We have a lender friend that had been encouraging us to start investing down in Houston. We had a number of reasons we didn't. But what was interesting, when they learned that we did distressed stuff 6 months ago, they had just stacks of stuff to show us already. And these were people that were saying, just take it for the note. I don't care about my equity. I just don't want a foreclosure. We can't control everything. We can't control insurance costs, but we can go force the value appreciation ourselves. We can take a 25% occupied property and make it a 95% occupied property by fixing the units and making them livable. Or we can make it nicer and so charge more rent. We can impact the value directly ourselves. And we can work harder and get better information in the real estate world.
Hey, Bruce, how do people, if people want to get a hold of you, want to track your company, or just hear more about what you guys do, how do they reach out to you or find out more about Elkhorn Capital Partners?
Yeah, it's elkhornpartners.com. You can go to that, and we have a portal you can register for to learn about our deals and things like that. Or you feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Not on the Elkhorn site on LinkedIn. It's just me personally, Bruce Fraser.
Good stuff. Okay, guys, be sure to check out Bruce. Bruce has been awesome.
One thing I can guarantee is that dollars 5 years from today are going to buy less than they do today. And so, reposition your dollars into hard assets, and I think you will be very pleased.
Yeah. Absolutely. Words of wisdom, guys. Bruce, thank you for joining us in that. Guys, great conversation in the Cash Flow Digest yet again. What I got from Bruce today is that the best way to make lots of money in real estate is to buy low, sell high. And if you're going to be able to buy low in real estate, you got to be able to buy properties that maybe are not as pretty and shiny today as they could be in the future. So find deals, find opportunities, be willing to do what others aren't willing to do, meaning like buy properties that are 20, 30% occupied and make them 100% valued. If you can't do that yourself, maybe become a part of a team that can, or find yourself someone as a team member that's able to do the hard work, the heavy lifting, and turning some of these properties around. Thank you for being a part of the Cash Flow Digest community and for being a part of DeRosa Insiders. Appreciate you guys for watching. We will see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. Hey guys, Matt Faircloth here. Thank you for listening again to the Cash Flow Digest. I really appreciate you guys doing that. If you guys want to hear more about what DeRosa Group has to offer, go to DeRosa Group, DeRosa Group.com, DeRosaGroup.com online. You can hear about all the great things that we offer from an educational standpoint and passive investment standpoint on our website. See you there. And if you guys want to join our online community, DeRosa Insiders on Facebook, where you can watch this program get recorded every Friday at noon Eastern, and you can come on as even a guest or ask questions on the show. We hope to see you guys on our online community, DeRosa Insiders. See you there.